us from unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Oh, peace, peace, peace.
Today I am going to present a Nirguni Bhajan composed by Saint Kabir Das. And the brief meaning is, if you do not urge to the Lord, He will never be awakened. Kabir Das says, we are surrendered at His feet. Let thy will be done. Without the Lord's grace, you will not meet a Guru and will not be showered with His divine grace. Lagana bina, lagana bina, jage na nirmohi. Lagana bina, jage na nirmohi. Lagana bina, jage na nirmohi. बिना लगन की प्रीति बावरे, बिना लगन की प्रीति बावरे, ओस नीर जो धोई, ओस नीर जो धोई लगन जागे ना निर्मोही। हम तो रहते राम भरोसे, हम तो रहते राम भरोसे, रज़ा करे सो होई, रज़ा करे सो होई। लगन बिना
reading from the book Journey from Many to One, Essentials of Advaita Vedanta by Swami Vivekananda. Here, Advaita Vedanta can help us to go beyond suffering by pointing out that in reality we are beyond all kinds of limitations. We are that infinity called Brahman. Ignorance of our true identity makes us think we are limited. We are like the infinite ocean. It's a shame that we think of ourselves as tiny drops of water. Advaita Vedanta reminds us of what we truly are. It reminds us of our oceanness or Brahmanness. An analogy will make this idea more clear. Suppose that a man named John had to play the leading role in Hamlet by William Shakespeare. During the performance, however, something strange happens to John. He identifies himself completely with that role which he is playing. Even when the play is over, he thinks that he is Hamlet. When he returns home, his wife says, "John, supper is ready, come and eat." "Who is John?" John asks his wife with surprise. "Why are you calling me John? Don't you know that I am Hamlet?" His perplexed and worried wife then tries to convince John in so many ways that he is not Hamlet. She tells him again and again, "You are John, and you have always been John. You should shake off the wrong idea that you are Hamlet." In this analogy, John's wife represents Advaita Vedanta, and John represents those who have forgotten their true nature. Swami Vivekananda, who at the end of the 19th century was the first to preach the message of Advaita Vedanta in the West, used to call this process dehypnotization. Forgetting our Brahman nature, we have hypnotized ourselves into thinking that we are puny human beings subject to disease, decay, death and all other kinds of limitations. To become free from such limitations, we have to dehypnotize ourselves by meditating on our Brahman nature. Advaita Vedanta, like John's wife, tries to remind its students that they indeed are Brahman, whether they know it or not. Not only that, they have always been Brahman and they will remain so forever. They only have to get rid of their wrong thinking produced by the ignorance of their true nature. This idea is explained by another analogy. Once a king was sailing on the sea in his royal boat. Suddenly, a severe storm arose. The boat capsized, but the king and the queen were rescued. Their only child, the baby prince, was unfortunately lost at sea. Later, a childless fisherman found the baby floating in the sea and rescued him with the help of his fishing net. The fisherman thought that God had at last graciously given him a child. Thus, he brought up the prince as his own son. And the prince also thought of himself as the fisherman's son. When the prince grew to be a young man, he would go to sell fish in the market with his fisherman father. One day, the king's minister saw him there. The prince had a rare birthmark on his forehead. Seeing that birthmark, the king's minister suspected that the young man was most probably the missing prince. After talking to the fisherman, he became convinced that the young man was indeed the prince who had been lost at sea. When the prince heard that news, the wrong notion that he was fisherman's son was gone, and he realized that he was a prince. It is not that he was the fisherman's son before and then became a prince. He realized that he had all along been a prince, even when he considered himself to be the fisherman's son. So also, the jiva does not become Brahman. The jiva's Brahmanness becomes instantly revealed as soon as the jiva's false identity as a human being disappears. Yes.
Now a short period of meditation. Welcome to the Sunday service today in November with the new standard time. And today's subject is Cat in the Mirror. This is inspired by a video clip that many of you might have seen, that a cat comes in front of a mirror and seeing another cat, image of another cat, that mirror was thinking that there is another cat there in the room, and tries to find that cat. Where is that cat? And goes behind the mirror, and there is nothing there. Comes in front, again sees the image. This way, that way, it was searching that cat, which it looked like another cat. So, but there is only one cat. There is only one being. And it's all reflection. That's what Advaita tries to say. It's very Advaitic feeling that there is only one being that appears as many. So, and with that is connected Swami Vivekananda, that story of magical mirrors. In fair, in olden times, in village fair, there used to come a hall, and there is to be different kinds of mirrors, some convex mirror, some concave mirror, and when you go there, it was all fun. They used to call it laughing hall. You go there and first you see a very dark man walking towards a mirror, and you find, oh, it's not dark man, it's your own image, but the mirror is set in such a way, your image, your mirror, your reflection has been compressed, and you look like a dwarf man. You go to another mirror, suddenly you become very fat. And another mirror, your nose becomes so long. Another mirror, you become skinny and tall. So all different forms of your own image. And it's not similar to what you think you are, but all are different forms, different shapes. But in reality, all are your own reflection. It doesn't tally with what you see in the plain mirror, but all are your own reflection, but all are different, all need to be different. Vedanta will try to say, these all are different, but they are your own form. It is all you that appears in that. And that is exactly what happens when we see in this world. This whole world is like the mirror. Vishwam darpana tulyamana nagarim. In the Dakshinamurti Stotram it is said, the world is like a reflection in the mirror. The context is a little different, to say that it's just a reflection, there is no reality, but it is just a reflection of our own self. If we think, I am true, I am real, I cannot unreal. What I think myself to be as this body and mind alone, that is unreal, but the concept of I, that is real, that always will be there, that is immortal, that is never vanishing. So that I appears as what this world we see, in the mirror of this world. One French-born novelist said, you do not see the world as it is, you see it as you are. So what we think of the world, also what is within us. It is like one person took his grandchild to a valley, and the child said something and sound came, and then the child starts saying another words, some bad words. The bad words were reflected upon that, and the grandfather, the child was very unhappy. Someone was saying very bad words. Grandfather said, no, now he says something of love, something of beauty, something of joyful. He started saying that those were reflected to us. What is within us, that is reflected to us. That's what world is really, just a mirror, and it reflects what we are, what is within us. The same world seems to some as all evil, to others as mixed of good and evil, and to a few as divine, according to his or her mind and mental purity. Swami Vivekananda says this. Those who are very impure-minded and very negative attitude person, they see the whole world is full with negativity. I have seen people saying, oh, the world has become so bad, it's going to be destroyed any moment. It is all filled with Ghora Kali Yuga, and whole this bad thing has come up. Now we can't survive anymore, that people say. With that very word, this is so beautiful, joyful world. In the gospel also you find one, this sadhaka, one spiritual practitioner, he said, this world just deceives us. This is world of Maya, all appearance, nothing real. And they said, what are you saying? This world is all joy, all divine. Everywhere God is reflected. There is the presence of God in all the forms. It is full of joy. Mojar Tati, Mojar Kuti. And this is Thokar Tati. It's like a deceiving thing. It's all being attracted, it catches, it makes you attached. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, sometimes those who practice Jnana Yoga and want to be saved from this Maya, always are afraid of being caught in Maya. But those who practice devotion to God, they find God everywhere in different forms and different beings. God manifested as different persons. And they enjoy every person as different reflections of God. Swami Vivekananda said a great thing. He said, Satya Yuga has been ushered in the day Sri Ramakrishna is born. After Sri Ramakrishna is born, the good times have come. The whole Satya Yuga, the concept of Satya Yuga is people are just, there is joy, there is purity, loving, people love each other unselfishly, and there is justice, and there is all goodness there. Kali Yuga is just the opposite of that concept, the society of Kali Yuga. This, according to traditional division of the time era, this time, present time is Kali Yuga. This is just the beginning of Kali Yuga, its lot remains to go. But Swami Vivekananda, why did he say, the day Sri Ramakrishna is born, Satya Yuga has come? It's all good times have come. Love, purity, service, and feeling of oneness, and feeling of friendliness, all help, how that has come. But we find so much injustice, so much trouble, so much difficulties, struggle, conflicts, war, battle, all is there. In Satya Yuga is supposed to be peaceful, happy days. So we have to understand what Swami Vivekananda wants to say. When Sri Ramakrishna is born in our heart, we are freed from all negativity, and we start seeing God or Sri Ramakrishna, a love everywhere. Manifested differently, people are different, maybe one person is not as kind as another, but there is definitely goodness in all people. That is very nature, basic nature of everyone. The goodness, the purity, the divinity, the basic nature of everyone. So when Sri Ramakrishna is installed in our heart, we start seeing the goodness in all the people. Different, maybe variety, but there is some intrinsic beauty, intrinsic goodness is there. When we start seeing goodness and beauty and friendliness and the nice, positive thoughts, that time Satya Yuga has come. So when Sri Ramakrishna is born, not physically, but he has to be born in our heart. And the Satya Yuga will be, I will be living Satya Yuga, maybe you will be living Satya Yuga, maybe if I am not that positive and I see negative, I will be living in Kali Yuga or Dwapara Yuga. So Satya Yuga depends how is my mind. And the whole my mind is reflected in the world. Satya Yuga will be really there if I live in Satya Yuga. I really live in Satya Yuga. Everyone seems to be just. Swami Vivekananda said, the world as it is perfect. World should be like this. And he saw divinity everywhere. That's what the Satya Yuga comes. The day Sri Ramakrishna is born, Satya Yuga has been ushered in. It has come in vogue. It has come into effect. The story of cat in the mirror. A similar story is there. The dog in the mirror. A person owned a dog, big Alsatian. And dog loved the master very much. And the dog was allowed to go all the rooms in the house, but he was denied to enter one particular room, which was the drawing room. So whenever master had to go out for some errands or some office, he used to lock the drawing room and then leave. Dog used to go to his bedroom, dog used to go to living room, a kitchen, everywhere. It was so friendly and so nice dog. But he could not go to that drawing room. The dog thought, what is there in drawing room? My master loves so much, but he doesn't allow me to go that room. He had great wish to visit that room. Great desire. So, but he finds it closed. Our master is there when it is there. So he was never allowed to go and see what is inside there, why it is kept secret, why it is so important that I should not enter. I enter everywhere. I sit on the bed of my master. He doesn't say anything. But drawing room, what is there then? One day what happened? The master of the house was in a hurry. He had to leave the house and he forgot to lock the drawing room. Now dog saw master is not there, drawing room is open. He just entered the drawing room. When he entered the drawing room, he found 3 dogs coming from 3 sides. All these different sides, and as he entered, dogs are also coming nearer to him. He was very scared and very unhappy and angry. How could they enter in my master's house? Here I alone am the servant of master, I am alone the friend of the master. How could they go? Come. So he was very upset with those 3 dogs. And he went close to that and started barking at one dog. Then another dog also barks at him. The third dog also barks at him. So he was then jumped to the second dog, jumps to the third dog. Now all are barking, all are angry, all are upset. So all the time he was jumping from this wall to that wall to that wall to challenge this dog to another dog. So by this he was very tired. At the end of the day, before the master came, he jumped, angry, agitated. He fainted. Totally lost his energy. He fainted. Master came and saw his dear dog fainted, unconscious, lying on the ground. Then he understood what had happened. There were mirrors on 3 sides of the drawing room. And that's why Master didn't want to enter that. Then the master said to dog, and he said to his mind, I taught dog so many tricks, but I never taught him to smile, to be happy, to welcome other people. That was the difference. That was my lacking. If I had taught that to welcome other people, welcome other dog, instead of becoming angry when you see someone else, smile at them. If I had taught that, dog would be laughing and jumping. Now maybe seeing 3 friends. Now he saw all three were his enemies. Whom he saw was just another being in reflection. But what he was doing, he found the same dog. He was angry, other dog was angry. If he was friendly and smiling and welcoming, other dogs would be welcoming and smiling. That is how the reflection of dog in the room, that story says. This is told by Swami Vivekananda in his talk on one of the books. One person wrote, mirror, mirror on the wall. Very nice reading. Learn to recognize yourself in another people. Everything and everyone is your image. Yourself appearing a bit different in the mirror of ignorance. What is this mirror of ignorance? When we can't find ourselves in others and we feel afraid or feel risky, then it is the mirror of ignorance. When we don't see the real being as myself, then it is ignorance. Ignorance is something that reveals you what it is not. Like the ignorance of, a famous example of ignorance is seeing snake in a rope. There is a rope lying in a dim light, and it is rope. Because you are ignorant, you do not light, you cannot perceive rightly, and you start seeing it as a snake. And that snake is very poisonous. Whatever you think, it becomes that. Because you are in ignorance. Whatever you think, it starts being that. And then you start this food. Real snake, you may be not afraid that much, but this imaginary snake, you become more afraid. And you see all the difficult rattlesnake, cobra, all those kinds of snake you see in that simple inert piece of rope. Why you see that? Because of ignorance. Ignorance can do that. After, if we have knowledge, then it's a rope. It is nothing, it will do no harm. Similar thing it happens when you are ignorant. We see all different people, all difficult people, all are unfriendly, inimical people. But when you have knowledge, when you have knowledge of yourself, then you see all are your own being, all are your own friends. If you go still higher, all are your own self that appears as different being. Swami Vivekananda was traveling in desert, and he had beautiful narration of how he saw the mirage. Let me read that. I was once traveling in the desert in India. I traveled for over a month and always found the most beautiful landscapes before me. Beautiful lakes and all that. One day I was very thirsty and I wanted to have a drink up at one of these lakes. But when I approached that lake, it vanished. Immediately with a blow came into my brain the idea that this was a mirage about which I had read all my life. And then I remembered and smiled at my folly. That for the last month, all the beautiful landscapes and lakes I had been seeing were this mirage. But I could not distinguish them again. The next morning, I again began my march. There was the lake and the landscape. But with it immediately came the idea, this is a mirage. Once known, it has lost its power of illusion. So this illusion of the universe will break one day. The whole of this will vanish, melt away. This is realization. Philosophy is no joke or talk. It has to be realized. This body will vanish. This earth and everything will vanish. This idea that I am the body or the mind will for some time vanish. Or if the karma is ended, it will disappear, never to come back. But if one part of the karma remains, then as a potter's wheel, after the potter has finished the pot, will sometimes go on from the past momentum. So this body, when the delusion has vanished altogether, will go on for some time. Again, this world will come. Men and women and animals will come, just as the mirage came the next day, but not with the same force. Along with it will come the idea that I know its nature now, and it will cause no bondage, no more pain, no grief, no misery. When we see the truth, that what I see is not that what it looks like, ignorance has gone. When ignorance leaves, then we see the reality. This person writes, continues, mirror, mirror on the wall. It is only when you understand what it truly means to see yourself reflected back at you that there is no room for blame, there is no room for judgment, and there is no room to feel like a victim of another person's actions or words. There is only room for real love based on understanding and gratitude. Compromise comes easy. Forgiveness is given thing, and growth is inevitable. Well, this truth applies to all of your relationships, from your family to your friends and colleagues, and even to those you deem your enemy. It is your relationship to your significant other that enables you to take the closest, most accurate look at who you are. What we see is what we are. The beautiful verse that in Bhaja Govindam, it says one person became angry. So it says, why are you angry? Tvai mai chanyat traiko Vishnu vyartham upyasi mai asahishnu. Why you become annoyed on me? Why you become so angry? There is nothing else other than the Vishnu. In me and in you, it's one God, it's all that God appears as two. So why to become angry upon others? A beautiful Hindi song is there, Mujhme Ram, Tujhme Ram, Sabme Ram Samaya. This God residing, Rama residing in the heart of everyone. Sabse kar le pyar, jagat mein koi nahi hai paraya. There is no alien, there is no other. All are our own, because all in all resides same God. Jano ya na jano, Tum hi Ram. Swami Sarvapriyananda often quotes this. He heard in the Himalayas. Whether you know or not, but you are that God, you are that Brahman. So we may not know, but we all are same Brahman appearing as many. One saint came to, one person of knowledge came to ask for food in the temple. And seeing him like a mad person, they denied him food. And then what he do, he has no difference between good and bad, whether respect or insult. He doesn't mind anything because he sees divine everywhere. He is in the joy of the knowledge of God, knowledge of Brahman. He lives in that bliss. Nothing can take away that joy from him because he is a true devotee of God. So he went to the place where they have thrown that left out food on the plate. He removed some dog there and took one plate where there was leftover food thrown out. And he sat on a dog and he started eating that food which dogs were eating. And he was happy. Seeing this madman sitting on the dog and eating the leftover food which dogs were eating, the children around, they gathered and they started laughing at him. Then he says, Vishnu paristito Vishnu khadati Vishnave katham hasasire Vishnu sarvam Vishnumayam jagat. The Lord is sitting, God is sitting on God. I am God, dog is God. Vishnu khadati Vishnave. And God is eating God. The food is God and the eater is God. And why are you laughing? Oh gosh, oh Vishnu, why are you laughing? The one who is laughing, teasing, those are also gods. Eating, that is also God. Dog is God, food is God, I am God, you are God. There is Katham Hasasya Vishnu, Sarvam Vishnu Mayam Jagat. Whole world is nothing but that divine God, that divine Vishnu. Nothing else exists but God. In Mundaka Upanishad, there is a beautiful story of two birds. One bird was eating the world, the samsara, sometimes eating good fruits, and very happy and dancing with joy. Other fruits it was good, but it was sour and become very sad. Whenever it was sad, it looked here and there. It was so bitter that he looked here and there. And then he found there is another bird sitting at the top, and it was eating nothing. It was neither enjoying nor suffering, but was very calm, peaceful, joyfully sitting there quiet. And so glorious. And then like that he started jumping up about fruits, and sometimes eating bad, sometimes good, sometimes sweet, sometimes sour fruits. Whenever he did sour fruit, he saw that bird up, doing nothing, eating nothing, enjoying nothing, but it is very peaceful, seems to be very happy. And this person, this bird, it suffers one time, enjoys other time. Finally it reached up near the bird. Swami Vivekananda says, then he found the light coming from the body of that quiet sitting bird. And this bird, which had come near that bird, found that there is no existence of this bird, which was suffering. It melted and became one with that bird. Then realized there was no two birds, there was only one bird. That top bird, which was peaceful, calm, sitting, neither suffering nor enjoying this world, and was always one. The lower bird just seemed to be like there is another bird. Always there was one glorious bird. That bird is called Brahman, Paramatma. And that Paramatma seems like Jivatma, or the very many souls which enjoy and suffers in this world, apparently. Otherwise, there is no enjoyment and suffering, all is bliss. Because there is no difference between Paramatma and Jivatma. This all one existence appears as many. Swami Vivekananda in Song of the Sannyasi writes, the self is all in all, none else exists, and thou art that, sannyas in gold, say Om Tat Sat Om. He says, heed then no more how body lives or goes, its task is done. Let karma float it down, let one put garlands on, another kick this frame, say not. No praise or blame can be, where praiser praised and blamer blamed are one. So don't be disturbed by this world. All are yourself. Who praises whom is one reality. Who blames another, it is one reality. Swami Vivekananda tried to mix the science and spirituality. He found the theory of evolution here, where the world is supposed to be many and variety. And the Indian spirituality always said there is one being which appears as many. And he had the theory that all this science or art or everything is searching that unity. When that unity is found, there the knowledge will end. The search of knowledge is to try to find the unity. That was his thought. Let us see what he says about the difference between Eastern, Western science and the Eastern spirituality. Swami Vivekananda's thoughts on unity behind diversity. Swami says, the theory of evolution, which is the foundation of almost all the Indian schools of thought, has now made its way into the physical science of Europe. It has been held by the religions of all other countries except India that the universe in its entirety is composed of parts distinctly separate from each other. God, nature, man. Each stands by itself, isolated from one another. Likewise, beasts, birds, insects, trees, the earth, stones, metals, etc. are all distinct from one another. God created them separate from the beginning. That is the concept of other religions. Knowledge is to find unity in the midst of diversity, to establish unity among things which appear to us to be different from one another. That particular relation by which man finds this sameness is called law with capital L, rhythm. This is what is known as natural law. I have said before that our education, intelligence and thought are all spiritual. All find expression in religion. In the West, their manifestation is in the external, in the physical and social planes. Thinkers in ancient India gradually came to understand that that idea of separateness was erroneous, that there was a connection among all those distinct objects. There was a unity which pervaded the whole universe, trees, shrubs, animals, males, devas, even God himself. The Advaitin, reaching the climax in this line of thought, declared all to be but the manifestations of the One. In reality, the metaphysical and the physical universe are one. And the name of this One is Brahman. And the perception of separateness is an error. They call it Maya, Avidya, or nescience. This is the end of knowledge. When we find that one being, which is metaphysical truth and also physical universe, that being manifests as one. That's why they say, seeing one as many, that is the goal of spirituality. And when we can find that our own self manifested in this whole universe, then there is all joy, all love and loving service. That is essential to feel that way. This whole is just a reflection of our own self. In Dakshinamurti Stotram, that's why it was said that this whole world is just a reflection. Whatever is there, it's not real three-dimensional thing. It is just a reflection, two-dimensional. That's one way to practice spirituality. Treating this world as just an appearance and not being affected by that. So, neti, neti. And another way is to say, iti, iti. What is truth? What is I? What is reality? What is God? That God is in me. That God is everywhere. And that God appears as so many forms in the world. And that God is my true nature. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman, that reality. And that Brahman that I am it also appears as this universe, as the human beings, as the animals, as the insects. It's all my own self, that reality that appears as variety. Basically, essentially, all are one. When that oneness is seen, then there is nothing other than love that exists. And there is no pressure, praised or blamed of one. Swami says, if one kicks your frame, that your body, another puts garden on you, then don't be elated at one time and sad another time. The story like in Gospel you read the story, one person had gone to bake, one monk had gone to bake some food, but the household was very unfamiliar, unfriendly and cruel. So he became very annoyed, he was doing something, he asked, can you give me some food? So the householder became very annoyed, became violent and started beating that person with a stick. And that monk fainted, became unconscious. The news went to the hermitage, to the ashram where his brother monks and his guru lived, and they came to rescue. He was unconscious. Then they started fanning him and all that, and then he slowly, after water was poured, slowly he became little conscious. Someone said he must be hungry, he had gone to the beg food. They didn't know the story, that he was cruelly treated. So they said, someone said, bring some warm milk and feed that to this person. He's fainted without energy, no food had gone into his mouth. So they brought food and was feeding the milk when he regained little conscious. Then to check whether he is fully conscious and aware of the surrounding, he asked, brother, can you recognize us? He said, yes, I can recognize you. Then who is feeding you milk? He said, the one who bait me with stick is now feeding me milk. The one who bait was the cruel person, unfriendly person, unkind person. Which feeding him was his own brother monk, loving, kind, serving brother monk. He says, both are same. Who bait me with the stick is now feeding me milk. That is seeing oneness in every treatment. Whether you treat well or treat ill, it's same God which appears as many, which treats as many. When you start seeing God, doesn't matter how you are treated. If you are even insulted by one person, you say God wanted to play the game of insult. God wanted to play the game of praise. It's all same. How you are treated, how you are done, you are because you are in the joy of the presence of God. Only the one thing comes by when we start seeing God and live in the God. That inner disposition of living in the divinity, in the bliss of God, that comes when Sri Ramakrishna is born in our heart. Then we live in bliss, in the joy of Sri Ramakrishna. Doesn't matter what other person does, how they treat us, what happens to that. You see everything as divine play, or happening by the will of God. Everything. Doesn't matter how you sleep, how you sit here or lie here. Doesn't matter. God is treating that. Everyone belongs to God, and He is the one who looks after everything. Who am I to condemn someone? Who am I to criticize someone? God knows everything. By God's will, everything happens in this world. And you find joy in everything that happens to this world, everything that happens to you. So, what happened then? If there is why Swami Vivekananda sometimes couldn't sleep at night, that was not because he saw some bad thing. He suffered because many people died in South America. That heart which embraced and felt that whole humanity is his own, he found some humanity suffering. That suffering makes you sad, but that sad is also out of love. There is peace, and there is a feeling of oneness in that suffering. And that type of suffering makes you connected with all, leads you towards the unity, towards the awareness of truth, that all is one. You may suffer, that suffering is different from when you suffer from ignorance, that is the suffering of born out of knowledge. Others we suffer born out of ignorance, individualized, self-centered person. That suffering is different from selfless, all-pervading reality of what understood that person. Swami, to conclude, I read from Swami Vivekananda. It's the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Lectures and Discourse. Topic is the free soul. The Advaitist, the non-dualist Vedantist, solves the problem by maintaining that there is really no part, that each soul is really not a part of the infinite, but actually is the infinite Brahman. Then how can there be so many? The sun reflected from millions of globules of water appears to be millions of suns, and in each globule is a miniature picture of the sun form. So all these souls are but reflections and not real. They are not real I, which is the God of this universe, the one undivided being of the universe. And all these little different beings, men and animals, etc., are but reflections and not real. They are simply illusory reflections upon nature. There is but one infinite being in the universe, and that being appears as you and as I. But this appearance of divisions is after all a delusion. He has not been divided, but only appears to be divided. This apparent division is caused by looking at him through the network of time, space and causation. When I look at God through the network of time, space and causation, I see him as the material world. When I look at him from a little higher plane, yet through the same network, I see him as an animal. A little higher as a man, a little higher as a God. But yet, he is the one infinite being of the universe. And that being we are. I am that, and you are that. Not parts of it, but the whole of it. It is the eternal knower, standing behind the whole phenomena. He himself is the phenomena. Phenomena, this created universe is phenomena. He is both the subject and the object. He is the I and the you. How is this? How to know the knower? The knower cannot be known himself. I see everything but cannot see myself. The self, the knower, the Lord of all, the real being is the cause of all the vision that is in the universe. But it is impossible for him to see himself or know himself excepting through reflection. You cannot see your own face except in a mirror. And so the self cannot see its own nature until it is reflected, and this whole universe, therefore, is the self trying to realize itself. This reflection is thrown back first from the protoplasm, then from plants and animals, and so on, from better and better reflectors, until the best reflector, the perfect man, is reached. Just as a man who, wanting to see his face, looks first in a little pool of muddy water and sees just an outline, then he comes to clear water and sees a better image, then to a piece of shining metal and sees a little better image, and at last to a looking glass, to a mirror, and sees himself reflected as he is, or he or she is. That's what Swami Vivekananda wants to say. What we see in the universe is nothing but our own reflection, and reflected in various other forms, but it is none other exists other than our own self. The whole universe is our own self being seen this way. And when our mind is purified, then we see the whole universe as Brahman, as ultimate reality. And that is the goal of all spiritual practice, to see the one undivided, eternal, immortal being as the true self of mind and myself and the whole universe. And the saying that Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman, comes to the realization in our deep being.